We'll call to order the November 22nd regular meeting of the Jersey Shore Area School Board. Roll call, please, Mr. Enders.
Mr. Michael Allen.
Present.
Mr. Berngard.
Here.
Ms. Stobler.
Here.
Mrs. Grant.
Here.
Mr. Kinley.
Here.
Mrs. Petrosky.
Here.
Mrs. Stemler. Mrs. Thomas. Mr. Craig Allen.
Here.
All 9 members present.
Okay, we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have minutes for approval from October 11th and October 25th. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections to either of those? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Treasurer's report. We've got the treasurer's report and investment report from October 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Okay. Any discussion or questions or corrections on the treasurer's reports? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Approval of bills totaling $3,347,980.15. We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or corrections on any of those numbers? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, communications.
I do want to report to the board that Mr. Enders and I received communication of a round of ESSER funds that is coming through. We just last month approved the IDEA pass-through funds that come through the IU to the school district. There are a round of ESSER funds that are coming through that same pathway. So the allowable uses of that money is different because it's got to stay inside the allowable uses for IDEA funding. But we are, Mr. Benders and I, Mr. Enders, where'd that come from? Are working with the IU to spend that money on the allowable expenses. And a lot of that pass-through funds you do already use with your IU contract for special education services. So we're working with them on spending those additional ESSER funds that are coming through the IDEA pathway. I also want to talk a little bit about with the whole board and in public tonight. I did share with the board a voicemail message that the district received earlier last week, and it was problematic for me. It was problematic for staff who received it. And after I listened to it, I shared it with our solicitor. I shared it with local police who did take action. And I just want to reiterate that our staff do not deserve to be treated with profanity and with threats. Our administrators and our secretaries do not get paid to deal with that type of behavior. I'm saying it publicly, not because I feel like it's a representation of our community. I don't. But I want to say it publicly so that you all hear that I made it very clear to our administrators and our secretaries that if they ever receive a message of that nature again, I want to know. The police are involved. They are taking action. They have already reached out to that individual. But I'm saying it publicly so that the whole community hears that that behavior is not appropriate, it's not acceptable, and we don't do that here. That's my communications for this evening.
President's report, and I'll just tag on to that. This voicemail, I counted 16 different vulgarities within a minute and 30 seconds. So that's the kind of nonsense that we're just not going to put up with. Intermediate unit report.
I did have Dr. Omer attach the board summary from our report, so I don't know if you got a chance to see it or not, because I just received that today. I know the IU is celebrating their 50 years this year, because they were established in 1971. And our IU, the IU 17, has been recognized at the state level as one of only 5 intermediate units selected by the Pennsylvania Department of Education to showcase our accelerated learning plan at the statewide Standards Aligned System Institute in Hershey in December. So that's a nice accomplishment for our IU, and I think they do a very good job. Thanks.
And I will add to that, I have been attending their accelerated learning plan meetings, as have some of our principals. And actually last week at the superintendent's meeting, the whole IU group got to see more pieces of that plan. It's very well done.
I was also appointed on the governance committee too for the IU. Well, should be interesting. We'll see. Yeah.
Okay, student representative report.
Hello, my name's Madeline Gerson. I'm the student school board representative. Thank you all for welcoming me back. So I just had a few things I wanted to touch on. First up, the bus. We did reach our goal of 1,000 cans or non-perishable food items. And we did have a little bit of a healthy competition going on between the homerooms of each grade level. Whoever brought in the most canned goods actually won a pizza party. So I'm not sure who won, but we'll see. The Friday football game, the boys did so well, and they won 20-7 against Allentown Central Catholic, and I'm very proud of them because it seemed as though they had every disadvantage in the book. Allentown Central Catholic actually had home field advantage, and they were a private school that was able to recruit, so that really shows something about our boys. And they're now within the 8 top teams in the state for District 4. And the boys are pretty optimistic about the next game, which will be played Friday against Meadsville at Clarion University. And we did have 3 pep buses for Friday, and there was 3 sponsors, Gala Boyer Roofing, the Shore Diner, and the Rooney family. And there was 1 student and 2 adult buses that went. And that was a fun time. I actually did ride the student bus. Winter sports practices and tryouts started Friday the 19th. And that's all I have for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
I'm going to start tonight with some recognitions. I'm going to go in the order that they are on your agenda. So first, I'd like to call forward Peyton Dincher and Coach Mom. Peyton Dincher represented Jersey Shore at the District 4 girls tennis tournament. You can turn around and listen. So, go ahead.
I'll get together.
So,
Like the Stooges here. I thought you guys were all going to talk heads.
thank you so much, Peyton, for representing Jersey Shore. Next, I want to call up Kaylin Shaw. No Coach Dad tonight. Kaylin is here tonight because Kaylin qualified for the District 4 golf tournament and represented Jersey Shore at states as well. Congratulations, Kaylin. Kaylin. Certificate for you. You need a picture yet? You good with your picture? He wasn't done with you yet.
Either one of you was looking and the other one wasn't.
and Raiden Francis. Raiden represented Jersey Shore and Coach Tyler at the PIAA District 4 cross country meet and did also qualify for states. Congrats. Thank you. I also want to echo what the students. Oh, it's empty. I will echo what the students, what was mentioned in the student report. We are very excited about our football team. They are doing really well. They are playing really well. I hope that I get to, again in December, have another early dismissal on December 9th, but I'll keep you posted. Our boys are doing a great job, and I want to be able to recognize them soon as well. Thank you, all three of you, for representing Jersey Shore well.
Dr. Ulmer, you want to identify the game? I think she said Friday night.
Oh, yes, I did hear, the game is Saturday at 1. Did I hear you say Friday?
Oh, I thought it was Friday.
Saturday.
Okay.
Good thing you heard that. I have two other recognitions for this evening before I move on to the rest of my report. First of all, tonight will be the last meeting for Mr. Harry Brungard.
Do anything.
Thank you, Mr. Brungard.
You're welcome.
Hold on. Our photographer's new.
Guy in the block.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also same for Mr. Craig Allen. We might have to move. There's a bulldog in
Right
your
in the
face.
projection.
Thank you both. Thank you both for your service to Jersey Shore. On my report tonight, and it is attached, I want to review the report that I got and attached for the board from Hunt and Site Logic on the ESSER project as an update. They reviewed the scope of work, which we've discussed before, of what an ESSER project is. And this is for the board's benefit. This is background information that will get attached to the award that you will have to vote on when they are ready, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So they give some background information on what the scope of work is for this type of a project on page 1. They do clarify that we are using ESSER funds because that will have to go out in the award as well. What I want to draw your attention to is the scope of work that is starts at the bottom of page 1. So this is what you will see when it's time to award contracts. This is the type of work and the products that you are actually going to be approving the purchase of. So what Hunt and Site Logic are doing for you in this update is laying out what Hunt has designed as what needs to be replaced based on your feasibility study, and what Site Logic and Mr. Wall and I have met with them and identified the types of equipment that we have that will work in our facility, that will work within our control parameters, and they start to identify in those 7 bullets for the high school what will be replaced in this project, and then it actually flows over onto page 2 for the middle school. That all was identified in your feasibility study as items in the HVAC system of both of those buildings that is in need of replacement. We identified that project through capital projects, and we discussed that with Hunt and Site Logic. But in their update, I wanted you to see the item by item of what they intend you to be able to do with the $2 million in ESSER funds that you're telling them that you want to replace. On page 2, they identified, and again, this will go out in the posting to bidders, that there is a $2 million cap. This is what we want to do with our $2 million. They identify that SiteLogic is controlling this project as your construction manager, and then they give a timeline, which we've discussed this timeline, but as an update, they're giving you that in print, that we're going to start talking about beginning of January. After we award the bids, they're going to start patterning what we do. I want you to notice, and Hunt and SiteLogic have had this conversation with me, in the construction schedule, it says limited work in the spring, April through early June. So we have identified places that, especially with these large rooftop units, if there is a day, those can pretty much be swapped out in a day. If we're ready and they get it here and we can take it off and put a new one on in a day, especially in a large group space where maybe on a day in the spring when we don't have school, or teachers are here and we can keep them away from a gym, for example, or a cafeteria, they could identify days in our schedule where if the equipment is here, we could start doing this work in the spring and not crunch it all into the summer. So as long as we can get the equipment here, you may start to see some of that work being done in the spring on days that work for us. And we've had that conversation, things like, well, when could the auditorium be done? Well, as soon as school is out, and they've had conversations in detail with me, like, well, do you use the auditorium for graduation? We see graduations on the calendar on this day. If you're not going to use it after school is out for graduation, they'll put it on the timeline that gets done right after school is out and gets out of the way. So that will all be calendarized as soon as we get the equipment on site. But again, I'm just giving you this update so you know this is what they're getting ready to put out. I want to draw your attention to the bottom of page 2 where it says next steps. We did talk about having a meeting to vote on purchasing equipment in December to meet this timeline. You will have to give public notice within 10 days per the federal bid requirements, and you have to give notice to have a special meeting anyway. We did talk at the last meeting about having that special meeting at reorg on December 6th. But they did call me on Friday of last week and say that they're having some issues with companies turning the bids around that quickly because of the Thanksgiving break. So they have asked if the board would consider pushing that special meeting back to later in December. So I'm asking you as a group, what are your thoughts on that?
Pushing it back to when, January or?
No, they want to do later in December. Not necessarily has
not
to
at
be late in
reorganization.
December, but they're not going to be ready. I shouldn't say that. They said they could be ready. They believe that if they extend it like another week, they could get more companies to bid because they'll have time after Thanksgiving break to put all of their bid packets together.
I think the week of the 13th would, that would be still before Christmas, and seems like that's all they needed, a week or 10 days.
So it'd be a special meeting then?
Does anybody have a problem with what Mr. Kinley, I heard Mr. Kinley say the 13th. Anybody have a problem with,
I can't make it.
Yeah, I don't think you want to go any later
we'll
than that.
excuse you, Mr. Brungard.
Okay, good.
Monday, the 13th, work, is anybody at this table have an issue with Monday, the 13th?
Nope.
Okay.
One week be time enough?
They were comfortable with, what they said to me was, they will have companies that will bid by the 6th if we kept it on the 6th. They would prefer to move it back at least a week so that they could try and entice others to bid because they gave them more time to get bid packets ready. They don't want to push it too much further into January because they're afraid the further back we go, the more issues we're going to have getting stuff here in time. Any other questions about that? I will report that to them tomorrow, and we'll start the process of advertising, as it does have to be advertised because of because it's federal money. I do have to give a 10-day advertisement, so that will have to happen as soon as we come back from Thanksgiving break. Other questions about that? Okay, thank you. And then I am going to move on to the year-end audit report. And I believe the tech is already set up on the podium, so I'm ready whenever you are. You should all have copies of this already. It's going to be on the screen, but it will match the printout that you all have in your packet.
All right, we don't have room for all of this. I need a bigger podium. Hi, everybody. I'm Rebecca Swales. I'm from Baker Tilly. I'm going to go over the year-end audit report. So just bear with me here till I get my. All right. So obviously, this is the financial statement, and we're going to summarize it in a few pages. I don't think you want me to go through 70 pages tonight. But anyway. Let's see if I can get this. All right. So the audit team is myself. I'm the audit manager. Alec Fantaski was the staff. And then John Compton, who I think normally does these presentations, is on vacation this week. So I'm here giving the presentation. We'll start with the executive summary. The financial statements get a clean opinion, which is an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get for a financial statement. Also, on your federal programs that we tested, we gave you an unmodified opinion, also the best that you can get. There were no findings related to the federal programs, and just general fund balance increased by $444,000. That's just a quick summary. We'll go over more of that related to the general fund in a little bit. Auditor's opinion. And if I'm going too fast, just let me know. I get a little nervous. We give two opinions, as I said before, and you'll find that the first opinion is on page 1, last paragraph, the unmodified opinion on the financial statements. And then page 63 is the unmodified opinion on your federal programs. And this year we tested the child nutrition cluster, which is the school lunch program, and the education stabilization fund, which is the ESSERS funds that you had spent in fiscal year 21. We'll start with going through the general fund. If you have a copy of the financial statements on page 18, you'll see that at June 30th, 2021, the total fund balance in the general fund was approximately $9.8 million. This represents 22.4% of your $44.2 million general fund budget expenditures, which is in line with recommendations from the GFOA guidelines. So the GFOA guidelines recommends a 2-month worth of operating expenditures in your fund balance. And for that would be like 7.4 million. And as we said, you're at 22% and not 16.7%. So you're a little better than the guidelines. Of your fund balance, there's 4.1 million of the 9.8 that's committed. And this is primarily for future PSERs and healthcare increases. In your page 54 of your financial statements, that actually gives you a breakdown of what the committed fund balance is specifically. But the two largest pieces are the future PSERs and the healthcare increases. The next slide is just a graph of the general fund balance composition. So you'll have the non-spendable, which is the smallest piece. It's a little over 84,000. That is your inventory and prepaid balances. So non-spendable is you can't spend it either because it's not in a spendable form, it's not cash like your inventory and your prepaids, or because it's either legal or contractually constrained. So that's just a tiny small portion. And then you have the committed balance, which we spoke about, and then the unassigned, which is the white portion. So this is just kind of a little graph to see the whole breakout of your $9.8 million fund balance. And another graph that we have here, this is the general fund balance comparing your unassigned fund balance. So if you look on the left there, the unassigned fund balance compared to the benchmark that GFOA has, you're at about 5.6 million of unassigned compared to the 7.3 of the GFO benchmark, which is about 1.8 million of low. But if you look at the unassigned and the committed fund balance, you're over that. The committed balance, you know, that's a balance that you kind of have in the reserve, but yet you can still at some point change that if you need to as a board. And another fun graph. This is just a graph of your fund balance through the years and where it's been at, as you can see. The next thing I want to talk about is for fiscal year 21, GASB had, the district had implemented GASB 84, which is called Fiduciary Activities. So in the past, in your financial statements, your student activities funds and your scholarship funds that aren't trusted were recorded in the agency fund. So it was a fund not within your governmental funds. And this year with GASB 84, what happened was those student activities funds, the scholarship funds that aren't in trust are now, are now actually part of your top level governmental funds, a special revenue fund. So that happened this year. So what you're gonna see different in your financial statements is those scholarship funds are now, like you have your general fund, your capital projects fund, and you'll have your student activities and scholarship funds. And that GASB 84 established the criteria for identifying fiduciary activities. And so what they're saying is because the school district has that control of the student activities, I mean, even though it is for like your different clubs, the school is responsible, they have control, they help, they sign off on that they consider that more of a governmental type fund than kind of a agency fund, which is different this year, which adds $198,000 fund balance to your governmental funds is what it does. That was the big change this year as far as your financial statements.
For the board, if you look at our financial statements, page 18, which is our balance sheet, you'll see a new column compared to last year. It's called Other Non-Major. It's made up mostly of our new scholarship fund.
Right.
That came in at the end of last year, the Gilhart Scholarship. That got put into what's called a special revenue fund, which is, it's exactly a way you describe it. You can't spend it down. It's special revenue made there for a special purpose. So you'll see about $1.4 million sitting in your balance sheet as an other non-major. That's primarily the Gilhart scholarship account that came into the district.
Yeah, and the reason it's in that special revenue fund is because it wasn't set aside in a trust controlled somewhere outside.
Yeah, so you remember we talked about that when we came in and we developed the fund. This is very unusual that the scholarship was given directly to the district with very limited request ties to it.
May I ask a question on that? The extra 446,000, where, was that extra money in the above and beyond the million? That's not, is that interest or what is that? Money's above the one.
It was the second piece.
That's all.
The column, that 1.4 million dollars is made up of primarily Gilhart, the student activity funds that Becky was just referencing, and there was other small scholarships. When the auditors reviewed it, they determined that they need to be in that special revenue fund as well. So there's actually 3 funds making up the other non-major.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to do a little, this is like a little comparison of history for the past 5 years. The first is the general fund revenue by sources. So you'll look here, 2021, your local, state, and federal. Your local is the blue. Then you have the darker green, which is your state, and the federal is I'm sorry, yeah. The local is, I got that backwards. Local is the lime green, the state is the dark green, and the federal is the small blue. So this year, local was about 19.8 million. That was an increase of about 1.2 million. And a lot of that was related to an increase in the earned income tax revenue that came in, about 656,000. Also, there was county cares money that's in the local pocket there of about 329,000. State, 23.4 million that was just a small increase of 44,000. And then the federal was about 1.9 million, and that was an increase of 1.2 over the prior year. And a lot of that was the CARES grant funding that you guys received. This slide is a breakdown of the last 5 years of your general fund expenditures, broken out between instruction, non-instructional, support services, debt service, and net transfers. The 2 largest areas of increase were instruction and support services. A lot of that related to spending of the grant monies, the CARES monies, the ESSERS monies. Also, obviously, an increase in spending for charter schools was a large piece of that. But that's, any questions on that? Long-term debt. And if you look on your financial statements, pages 38 through 40 describes the debt of the school district. This year, we issued the general obligation bond series of 2021, which was $8,069,000. That paid off your general obligation 2012, 2015, 2015A, and the general obligation note series 2015 AAA. Also during the year, the general obligation note 2015 AAA was paid off based on your debt service payments. So overall, your long-term debt balance at the end of fiscal year 21 was $24,720,000. And that bond series of 2021 that you issued, that's going to give you a reduction of approximately $200,000 over the next 5 years. And as you can see from the graph, you can see that your debt balance has been declining.
What is our debt limit in the district? Is it 60 some?
Not sure, Ben, do you know?
60 some million?
That's PFM's.
PFM
Calculation.
provides that, but I update it every year in the
Okay.
budget presentation. I can pull last year's dollar amount.
Oh, that's okay, I just.
Yeah, I don't
I
don't think
you
you're-
guys can calculate that for
no, no.
audit costs.
PFM most likely will be back here. They're usually here early in the spring to give you that annual presentation. So Ben's gonna get you last year's, but you should be getting a new one very soon.
I can't imagine that you guys are close to your debt limit. Any questions on long-term debt? You guys did a great job with that new bond issue and the interest rate on that. That was very good. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the single audit, the uniform guidance compliance. So the schedule of expenditures of federal awards is on page 65 and 66 of your audit. The district spent approximately 3.6 million federal financial assistance during fiscal year 21, which is more than you have in the past. And because of that, well, there's two reasons. So in fiscal year 21, we had to test two major programs. Normally, we usually only have to test one major program. But both your school lunch program, the child nutrition cluster, and the ESSERS were over $750,000, which makes them a type A program. And because the nutrition program hadn't been tested, because it has to be tested every 2 years if it's a type A program. So we had to test that, and then also the ESSERS program to get the coverage, because so this year we had to test two, no problems, we had no findings. Any questions about the single audit?
First thing was, I got our debt limit last year calculated just over 93 million. We had available at that point about 68.5 million, so it was $60 million limit. I wanted to point out to the board and the community how much federal dollars are flowing through the district. Pulling up last year, last year our federal expenditures, we were at 3.6. What was just reported? Our federal expenditures last year was $1.8 million. So that's a combination of CARES, but also remember that every kid is eating for free. So a big chunk of that is the food service money flowing to the district too. Because right now of our lunches and breakfasts, it's all federally funded and state funded. So there's a piece of that 3.6, 900,000
Yep,
that's
it's
flowing
food
through
service.
food service. That's up almost $300,000. So as of right now, I can tell you that that program is ending at the end of the school year, but we thought that last year. And we don't know, but just keep that in mind. It's not only CARES, it's also flowing to other departments within. Sorry.
When did you say it was ending the end of the school year?
End of the school year, yes, for now.
All right, so on the horizon, but I think the next Government Accounting Standards Board statement that's probably going to have any type of significance would be GASB 87, which is the leases. So the district does have a few leases. This would affect any capital leases and operating type leases and how that's accounted for. But we have a little bit of time that will be adopted for your fiscal year 23. And in summary, district's general fund balance is in line with the GFOA recommendation guidelines. We have, the internal controls are in place and there were no material weaknesses noted. And obviously the business office is very solid and does a very good job with bookkeeping. I was very, very happy with the audit. I have no complaints. All right, next. Thank you everyone for having me. Do you have any questions?
I have a couple.
Okay.
You answered quite a few of them there on the live. Page 12 there, the non-public school programs went up 72%. What does that pertain to? Is that
I'm sorry, what page was that?
page 12 it was? That just struck my eye there, a high percentage change. Non-public school programs. Would that be charter schools?
Non-public school programs?
Yes. 72% increase?
No, but that's only 11,000. I'm not sure, Ben, what?
That non-pub cost,
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah, your charter school is.
Student in the district, it's like, that's the 11,000.
Yes.
Yeah, that was essentially an early intervention student that did not.
Yeah, I think the 72, yeah, the 72% looks high because it went from 6,000 to 11,000. I think the percentage
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Page 24, that net deficit ending, is that deficit for, we're looking at next budget?
Yeah, okay, so that's your proprietary, that's the food service. So yeah, that's a deficit, not a net position on your food service fund. That's one of those. Your food service program tends to
It is on the agenda.
have more expenditures than brings in revenue.
The deficit from teaser, that's being
Right, yeah, it's, if you look on page 20, all right, if you look on page 23, this is the good example. So if you look on page 23, your net pension liability is on there at 1.2 million, which is the PESers. So that's why you're seeing that net deficit. Years ago, I don't know how many years it's been since we put GASB 68 on, 2015, I believe, was the first year. So you wouldn't have seen that. That's the PESers liability that they put on, I think it was 2015. That's really what's driving that.
I didn't get a chance to say back to your non-public question, and I could be off on this, but remember, ESSER 1 money to non-public schools went through us. So we would have to book the fact that we got ESSER money in ESSER 1, that all we did was turn around and give it to the non-public schools. So that would be, no, that would come through that as well. I see Ben shaking his head, so I'm pretty sure I'm on the right track.
I just wanted to note before I end that the slides from 20 and beyond include certain required communications that we included here for you, for your information. This has all been covered through the audit process, but you can look at it, and if you have any questions, you can get back to me, but I'm not gonna, for time of interest, I'm not gonna go through it, but it's standard communication with the board that we have every year. We just put it into a nice little packet for you, so it's a little easier, but don't hesitate to ever reach out to us if you have any questions related to that. Any other questions?
I had a question for Ben. With the delinquent taxes, do we have a service or something that was going to be collecting funds, trying to get those?
Both our delinquent taxes get turned over to the two counties, and the two counties go through and collect those for us. You'll actually get that settlement here in January, February, and that's the process by which we then turn those over to the county and they start collecting them.
Okay. So have we gotten any revenue in from that at all?
Oh
this
yeah,
year?
our delinquent tax revenue was actually up. That was one of the variances that I didn't quite nail when I was projecting them. We received a decent amount for delinquent real estate taxes in this last fiscal year.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before Becky leaves, because you were both on the audit report, does anybody have any questions that we'd like to ask her before you would have to take action on that audit report? Thank you. Thanks.
And the last thing under my report is, and I think I said this at the last meeting, we're almost there. There are 3 policies on for presentation tonight. All 3 of them contain simple PSBA legal edits. If you have any questions about any of those, I'll take them now, or you can ask me or send me a message after the meeting, but those are just for presentation. We'll vote at the January meeting. Any questions at this point? Okay. And that's my presentation, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. We had 2 people sign in to speak on agenda items. Brandy Carruthers is the first one. Brandy? Okay, Anne Marie Furman.
So you didn't talk the health and safety plan? Or did I miss you talking the health and safety plan?
There's an amendment on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, so I can still talk it?
Yep,
since-
yep.
Okay, very good.
It's an action item.
This
so.
is still new to me. So, Anne Marie Furman, Watson Township, again, continuing to do God's work in protecting our children. So, with the health and safety plan, I do ask that you go a little bit further when you're just making the indication about the masks from the lawsuit, right? So I ask that you simply rewrite that aspect. The parents have the responsibility to make the decision for their child's health, not the CDC, not the FDA, not the Department of Education, the Secretary of Health, or the governor, but the parents have the right to choose what is good for their child's health and safety. So I asked that when you're rewriting, that you rewrite that, right? You get together, you talk it over. If you want some guidance from the parents, if you want some guidance from our attorneys, because our attorneys obviously knew from the start that it was an unlawful order that was put out there. And we would really appreciate that you take the time to rewrite that, not just because of the unlawful order and waiting for the hearing, the results of the new hearing, but to make it the parent's choice. We have the right to raise our children as we deem, and we know what's best for them and their health. That's my request. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to mention that, and we said this last summer before we started, but we do have to periodically update the plan and resubmit it. There's a timeline. We're not doing it now because we have to, but there is a timeline that the board has to reconsider the plan, and we've talked about that before, at least minimally every 6 months. So the review of the plan will continue as long as the requirement is in place. So thank you.
So there'll be more of a deep dive January, February-ish.
I know some other districts had support from parents to help assist with the wording. The parents in the community are able to participate in that process.
We did collect, when we drafted it over the summer, we did put a survey out for input, and we can do it again. I haven't asked if that was required in the initial draft. I'm not sure if it's required, doesn't mean we can't, but that is a requirement of creating the plan. I didn't ask if it's a requirement of revision, but doesn't mean we can't. Once we draft it, we could put something out. Thank you.
Okay, that will be the end of courtesy of the floor. That's all we had signed in. We'll move on to a regular action agenda. Personnel, we have items A through K. We have a motion for personnel.
So moved.
Any questions, comments, or concerns on A through K?
I have a question. F and G, I'm just wondering, head cook back to part-time, what's happening with staff moving around?
F and G are
I'm sorry, F and H.
F and H are both related to the items before them. So E and G are FMLAs for people who are going to be out. And then it came up, one of the employees brought it up, it had happened before, that when a head cook was out and someone else was named in that position for a period of time, the board approved the replacement to receive the starting head cook salary for that period of time. So the FMLAs are listed as E and G, and I did that on purpose so you could tell E is an FMLA that's going to be replaced for a period of time by F, and the same thing with G and H. So both of those were medical issues that are, you're approving the FMLAs, and then you're approving the person who's going to step in from their position to take over as the head cook for a period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a minimum period of time for that to kick in, or?
What we found in 2018 was you did it for 2 weeks. So there's nothing and that was part of our conversation internally. There's nothing in writing that says what to do, but you did it previously for a 2-week period of time. So that's what Mr. Enders and I talked about, is we need to put something in writing, but there is nothing in writing. So I was basing it off what you did before as a board.
So for now, it would just be based on past practice.
I have a question on B and C, clarification, probably. The musical, I'll just take the musical, for example. When is the date for that? You haven't, is there a date set?
I believe I have it. Let me look for it.
The end of the year?
The calendar year? No, it'd be before the end of the school year.
Well, just, again, just clarification. Is this going to be open to the public, or how's that going to work?
Yes.
Clarification on that. It will be,
Mm-hmm.
not just.
It's in the
not
spring.
just parents and grandparents.
This is these both are in the spring, so we anticipate them being open to the public.
Clear. Okay. All right. Good.
Any other questions on personnel? Okay, having no other questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The next section with items on it is finance. We have A, B, and C. We have a motion to approve A, B, and C. Everybody's waiting for you, Harry.
No, I was waiting for somebody else.
Second.
Any questions on A, B, and C? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Thank you. Miscellaneous, we have A through L.
Motion to approve.
I was going to take that one, Harry.
You have a second?
I'll
Have
second.
motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns on the A through L? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Thank you. Anybody have anything that we would like to discuss as old business?
Before I go here, I went by the, it's Johnson House up there again. I see it's cleaned up a little bit, but there's still rollbacks. I believe they gotta be on the property. Have you done anything with that as far as, shutting down the utilities and stuff like that, or look forward to what's going to be done with it at all?
So, Mr. Wall, as a request from the Capital Projects Committee, we did put, and he just sent that to me last week, the end of last week. We're getting ready to present it to Capital Projects. I think they meet in January. So Capital Projects will see, we have a plan of a list of the things that need to get done, moving the electricity, what it would cost to tear the house down, all those items that we talked about as a board, that we're going to start by giving Capital Projects a list of what would it look like, item by item, cost by item, to make that project happen.
So you don't know where you're going, just options that you have. I would hope that you would not put a fence up, would be one deterrent I would have. I mean, I can't see the expense of putting the fence up there, just my opinion, but you have no set way of what you're going with.
No, it will.
No, nothing definite yet. It's gonna be up to Capital Projects.
It'll be up to the whole board to make those
Right.
expenses, but capital projects will make a recommendation.
In other words, your utilities are still on.
And
Well-
capital project meetings are open to the public.
Yes, yeah, I know.
I'll clarify, the utilities still run through the Johnson House to the stadium. That's what really needs to get fixed first.
Feeds off Johnson House over to the stadium.
Correct.
Okay, just as a reminder, we had an executive session prior to our meeting tonight for legal and personnel. And we'll have another one after the meeting for personnel, but there'll be no additional business conducted when that's done. Second courtesy of the floor, anything that's on your mind? No.
Amory Furman, Watson Township, and Soldier of God. So first of all, I want to thank you, Craig, for all the work that you did for Region 1. I truly appreciate that. And we're at a loss losing you. The whole district is going to be at a huge loss with not having you on the board. Secondly, Dr. Almer, thank you for your quick response to the ruling that Beam's order was unlawful. You all had me up here fighting for our kids, for my nieces and nephews. I knew it was unlawful. Our attorneys knew it was unlawful. And, you know, when it came out that the court said it was unlawful, your quick response is greatly appreciated. I just wish I could have been in the hallways of the school to hear the kids, because I'm sure it was probably one of the greatest moments in the last 2 years of their life. But thank you for that. The next thing is I'm really frustrated with our solicitors, right? So many attorneys have been saying it was unlawful. I don't understand why our attorneys gave us the direction that they gave us here at the district. You know, I would really like to ask you that, you know. It was unlawful. Many people knew it was unlawful, but you directed our district to continue down the path they were going at putting our kids at risk. And just very discouraging. And I asked the board, I don't know who makes the decision about looking at a new law firm. I don't know if it's the business office, I don't know if it's the superintendent, I don't know if it's the board. But I highly recommend that we get a new law firm representing our district, one that's going to be able to know what's lawful and unlawful, and one that's not going to encourage our district to put our kids at harm's risk with having to wear an unsafe mask, potentially having to get an unsafe vaccine, and potentially having to teach our kids you know, the critical race theory. So I just ask that all of you that are going to be on here, again, Dr. Elmer, who makes that decision? Who do I need to?
According to school code, the solicitor must be hired by the board. So just like the board hires me, the board hires a solicitor.
Okay.
It's not something that Mr. Enders or I mean, we can assist in procuring contracts and all that, but the decision of who hires the superintendent, the business manager, and the solicitor is up to the board.
Up to the board. Is there a contract that expires?
It's an
Annual contract? So I would really ask that we look into that, so that we can keep our kids safe and do the right thing for our kids. But again, thank you, Mr. Allen, for your service, and thank you, Dr. Almer, for your quick response
Thank you.
for that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Kayla Calhoun, Avisboro. I just wanted to go back to the presentation about the budget. She said there was a excess or increase of $44 444,000. Where did that money come from? I guess is my question. Like, what did we save on, or how did we get that monies back into the budget?
You know,
So, revenue came in better than expected, about $400,000, and expenditures came in lower than expected, about $400,000,
Okay,
which is about 1%.
1%. And was it any specific area that we spent
And
less on or got more back from?
the revenue, there were three primary areas: earned income tax, which I had been providing to the board an update on that monthly last year. Delinquent real estate taxes came in better than expected. And real estate transfer tax came in better than expected, and we all know what was going on in the real estate world last year.
And what about expenditures?
On the expenditure side, it's primarily in the contracted services area. And as I go through this budget, I'm going to kind of work at pinpointing exactly which ones of those came in better than expected. That includes our special ed placements. It also includes our substitute contract. I have a funny feeling it's sitting in the substitute area.
Is that because of their lack of ability to fulfill the needed positions?
It's that, and we also had multiple shutdowns last year. So, we were shut down for a week or two. We obviously didn't really need a whole lot of subs.
Thank you very much.
and I would just remind you, we were off by 1% of our budget. Most companies out in the commercial world would be thrilled to be within 1% of their budget.
And the only other thing I would add to that for the board is, one of the things that you'll see if you start to dig down is, not only was it 1% off, but we had a number of line items. Think back to my presentations on cyber charter expenses, cyber costs in the district last year, and how many kids were out of the district. So the fact that we had some line items way over budget from what we expected, not knowing we were going to be in that position. There were many other expenses we had to control to put ourselves in that situation. And some of that control that we did was taking, as we talked about through the last year, taking your ESSER funds that where it was allowable, we were covering other costs to protect the district from being out of balance by the end of the year. So some of what we did throughout the year was say, okay, we have this pot of ESSER funds. It can be spent on these things. Where can we put it so that we're protecting ourselves financially and not way overspending because costs were so out of control in areas we had no control. You're welcome.
Randy?
Hi, Brandy Crothers, Porter Township. It's really a question that I have with the new, with the updates on the mandate, whether with OSHA is not being able to mandate the vaccines. Where are we as far as the school district goes? As far as the discussion of a mandate, and if you are going to come up with a vote, will it be public?
First of all of the board votes have to be public. So does that answer that question? These guys cannot vote anywhere other than in a public forum. So that answers that one easily. There has not been any conversation from PDE, anywhere that I've had any conversations about vaccines being a mandate. I had a meeting last week with PDE, and they explicitly said that. There's no conversation at the state level at the Department of Health or PDE about making it a mandate.
Okay.
I've been very clear with the board that I don't want to be a healthcare provider. There have been opportunities offered to districts to provide clinics. We
Yes.
have not had a clinic.
Yes.
I think our
Southside's
Jersey
one of
Shore's
them.
up the street. That's been my answer from the beginning is I don't want to be a healthcare provider and I'm not.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, then could I have a motion to adjourn? Again, we will have executive session for personnel, but there'll be no additional business conducted.
I have some. Could Dr. Ulmer let the elementary parents know that we're working on a way to have the musical presentation? for the
Yes.
kids?
I don't.
Being
Yeah, so I'll just say it now, but we'll get something out that we are working on a plan for winter concerts. I know that's been a concern and we met about it today and I reviewed the plan tonight with the board, but we are working on getting out a plan for winter concerts for all schools, not just elementary, but K to 12. Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn.